Hello and welcome to episode number 43 of the Ask Dr. Zaino live show. Thank you all for being on here live and being on time. I know we have people who stroll in all the way through the show. We just appreciate that you're here. Right below the video, by the way, you're watching ChiroThoughtLeaders.com/ask-dr-Zaino every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Right below the video, you'll see a big orange button that says reserve your spot. We'll explain more about what that is here in just a second. Below that, social media buttons and links. Share it, like it, tweet it, pin it, all of those great types of things. Let your colleagues know that you're here. We really appreciate that. And then below that, you'll see the chat roll. We already have a couple dozen people logged into the chat roll, and we appreciate you logging in. I know there's some people that just watch the video and that don't, but if you do log in, you can participate in the conversation. Let us know where you're listening from, and let us know if you have any questions. So we have a special guest tonight, and first of all, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Zaino and let him introduce him. So here you go, Doc.
Thanks, Dr. Tabor. So yeah, everybody's watching right now, and for those who are watching the replay of this and you weren't able to get it, we don't stop. We go straight through because there's nothing special about January 1st. But in doing all of the things, when we consult with doctors, even with my patients, it's the same thing that comes up from time to time. It's money anxiety. I see a lot of money anxiety and a lot of money scarcity. And the only time we have fear or anxiety, or we feel sometimes like an idiot that we're going to make the right or wrong decision, is because it's lack of true knowledge. A lot of the knowledge we have when it comes to money was not taught to us at school. It was just taught to us by the media, by our parents, by our teachers, by our preachers, and it's not working out too well. So we just want to bring you what I consider the best of the best principles when it comes to money and the philosophy of it, so you could enrich your life and you could actually utilize it and not just you just focus your whole life on trying to accumulate some paper or numbers on a computer and never really have the potential to utilize it and make a really big impact. So today we have Tim Cardon. Last week was Garrett. Today's Tim. And Tim's going to go over a lot of amazing stuff with you guys. And it's awesome. So please take notes if you have it, or take notes on your phone. You're going to want to take notes, because if you're just listening to this and you don't take notes, I would hate for you to miss something that could totally let you change your philosophy on finances around. I know when your money philosophy changes, you become a free person to do what you need to do. You're no longer in that prison. So welcome, Tim. Thanks for coming on and having the time for us this week.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity of being here tonight. I really have been impressed with what you're doing and everything else. But as we get started tonight, what I wanted to first start off was how we need to really make sure we shift our focus away from the accumulation model. The accumulation model is kind of the old model we used that everyone kind of taught and preached to get rich. It was based on that compound interest hockey stick curve. It was based on the accumulation of just accumulate some account that gets so big you can eventually retire. And it definitely was something that wasn't working. Garrett alluded last week to the fact that I got my father to early retirement by applying some of these principles. And as I started working in my career in finance, I was working with Garrett at Guardian back when I was in college. And as I started to learn about all these things and go home and look at what my dad's situation was like, I realized that there was no way my father was ever going to retire if he continued doing this accumulation model or this accumulation method. And so I sat down with my dad and I started to talk him through some of these principles and how the old model that focuses on net worth is not going to make it. When we focus on net worth, I always like to compare that net worth is very similar to muscle and cash flow is very similar to blood, right? Now, Dr. Zaino has obviously spent some time in the gym to accumulate some nice muscle. When we accumulate nice muscle, it probably took at least more than an hour, right? But when we accumulate the muscle, it's great. We love to show it off. When we accumulate net worth, it's great. We like to talk about it and show it off. But without cash flow, it's worthless. Without blood, it's worthless, right? And so I've seen people that have a huge amount of assets on paper and yet can never make it to retirement because there's no cash flow behind those assets. So I sat down and talked to my father when we started to focus on cash flow over accumulation. And he was 48 at the time when I told him to quit putting money in his 401k and quit trying to accumulate money. And I really thought my dad was going to kill me at that point in time. It was kind of one of those hard traditions that you don't want to ever cross or overcome. So I said, hey, we need to focus on something else. Quit putting the money into this qualified plan that isn't going to serve you, and let's build cash flow with it instead. And so from age 48 to 58, he redirected those funds and focused on building cash flow over accumulating. By doing so, he was able to completely replace his income by that time. So he was ready at age 58, he could kind of walk out the door and retire because his cash flow now was meeting his full expenses and income. Now, as he did that, he just gained control, he gained peace of mind, and he gained safety, right? If you ever get to the point where your cash flow exceeds your expenses or exceeds the need for the expenses, that's when you're kind of ready to swing for the fences. You've made it to that next level. And so we've got to overcome that accumulation model. We've got to focus on ourselves, focus on our businesses, focus on those things that cash flow, and become as efficient as possible in cash flow in order to achieve that true freedom that we all want. Now, as we focus on cash flow, it kind of becomes irrelevant, or it's not really worth focusing on cash flow if we don't have proper account structure in place. And the reason that doesn't work is because of Parkinson's law. So if we think about Parkinson's law basically, if I'm going to paraphrase it, is if you have any excess or increase in your cash flow, but you do not designate a purpose for it, then within 3 to 6 months, your expenses will meet or exceed the cash flow. And so Parkinson's law truly becomes the biggest theft of our wealth. It's what really kind of robs us of that opportunity to become rich or become truly wealthy. And so we've got to do something that will allow us to keep Parkinson's law in check. And we want to use account structure to do that. A lot of people, when they want to try and get control of their finances, they go into budgeting instead. And we think about budgeting, budgeting is just a total scarcity tactic. When we sit down to budget, the first thing we think about is what can I cut out of my life? And what we found is what we typically decide we can cut from our life are the things that we enjoy. So life becomes very boring, very dull. The whole idea of budgeting becomes something that we dread. We don't do it long term. We won't keep it up. And so we want to be able to use proper account structure instead of budgeting to take control of our money, to take control of that cash flow. So as we grow the cash flow, we can always maintain a good, proper space. The other thing that we want to keep in mind in account structure is all of us have heard of this idea. Many people have read The Richest Man in Babylon as a financial book written back in the 1920s. The first principle that George Clayson teaches in that book is to develop the habit of always paying yourself first. And it's such a good habit that it's been repeated over and over since the 1920s when he wrote it down. But very few people I've found actually do it. And so in proper account structure, what I want people to do is set up a couple other accounts beyond your normal checking and normal savings account. The first one, I want it to be a separate savings account. I want you to call it a wealth capture account. So if you open up my bank statement, you'll actually see a separate account listed called wealth capture account. With that wealth capture account, what I want you to do is use this to keep Parkinson's law in check and use it to develop the habit of always paying yourself first. And I don't care if you're making $200 a month or $200,000 a month, this principle applies to every person. So with this wealth capture account, I want you to automatically sweep a minimum of 15% of any personal income. So not business income, but any of your personal income, anything you're taking in a W-2, anything you're taking in distributions, anything you're taking rental income, licensing, any type of income you receive personally, once it comes out of the business, I want 15% of it to be automatically swept into your wealth capture account. That'll keep 15% away from Parkinson's law. And then I want you to automate it as much as you possibly can. So if you're getting paid through payroll service and you can have direct deposit, automatically put the 15% away for you, do it. If you can't do that and you can set up some auto transfers at the bank, do that. Whatever you can do to automate the system so that it becomes a habit that happens first is vital in this. This will become a fund for both extreme safety and opportunity, right? We all know we need to build up some proper liquidity so we have a safety net in our personal finances. This is where you can start to build it from. We all know that we need to have the opportunity, or the cash is king, I guess, when we get into investing. So you have an opportunity to expand your practice. You have an opportunity to add a new line to your practice, a new service to your practice. If you have the cash, you can immediately execute upon that. If you don't, then you maybe are now going to the bank, you're doing some other things, you may or may not be able to make it happen. So this will be a fund that will be a first level of safety for you, but will then be your opportunity fund so that you can truly invest in yourself, invest in your business, invest in those things that you have true control over. The next account is the living wealthy account. You're probably pretty used to financial companies and financial pundits telling you to never enjoy life. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice so that someday you can enjoy things. One day you can enjoy things. And we found that just ends up turning us into burned out millionaires, miserable millionaires, right? It just burns us out. We don't enjoy life. We're not enjoying the journey. We're not building relationships with those people we truly care about in our life. We're not rejuvenating ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We're just ignoring all those things. And so we want to make sure that people are intentional about enjoying the journey. This is also recognition that there's more to wealth than just our financial wealth. There is that mental, soul purpose wealth, which some people call spiritual, our physical wealth, and then our relationship and social wealth. And if we ignore those other aspects of our wealth, it just becomes, like I said, it becomes a miserable journey. I oftentimes like to share the story of Larry H. Miller, just because he's a local guy from Salt Lake. He started working in the parts department of an auto dealership. He was so good at his job that the dealership, the headquarters back in Detroit came to him and said, hey, we want you to have your own dealerships. And so over the years, if you come through Salt Lake Valley, you'll see Larry H. Miller dealerships all over town. You also see movie theaters, restaurants. He was the owner of the Utah Jazz. People always ask how they could keep Karl Malone and John Stockton in Utah for so long because the Jazz aren't exactly a big market team. He did it because he was able to actually offer them dealerships as part of their incentivization to stay on their contract. Well, he built all these great things. He did a lot of wonderful things in our community. The fire departments and the police departments weren't coordinating very well. He built a coordinating training facility for them, $21 million facility for them to coordinate their training throughout the valley. He did some really cool stuff, but he died young, and he died young of type 2 diabetes. At age 64, he was dead. And to me, that's such a tragedy because what more could he have offered? What more could he have done that he wasn't able to live? What more of his purpose in his life could he have accomplished? And we all know that type 2 diabetes is something that can definitely be controlled and cured through proper diet and exercise and other things. And the last 2 years of his life, I guarantee you, were just hell for him. He had a heart attack, he had gastrointestinal bleeding, he had kidney failure, and he ended up having his legs amputated before his death. And so it's such a tragic story to see how someone got out of balance in their wealth and ignored that side of their wealth that allowed them to rejuvenate, take advantage of the physical wealth, relationship wealth, social wealth, all of those things that we were talking about. So with this Living Wealthy account, what we tell people to do is put another 3% of your personal income into this account, and this is meant to be guilt-free spending for your lifestyle. So we expect you to spend it on whatever brings you joy and fulfillment in your life so that you can rejuvenate mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, and build relationships with your friends and family. So in proper account structure, this allows you to be a proper steward of your wealth. It allows you to have a great safety fund, a great opportunity fund, and also be intentional and deliberate about enjoying life and enjoying the journey. And so when you focus on cash flow, whether it's tough or whether it's great, and whether we're building that cash flow, if we don't have account structure in place, that build of cash flow can be stolen by Parkinson's law. So set up those two accounts and begin utilizing them in that way, so that as you grow and learn, you already got the system in place. I always like to tell people the habit is more important than the account balance. So there's going to be times that all of our businesses are going to ebb and flow. We're going to have great months, we're going to have tough months throughout our life. If we ever let the habit die, so if we think, oh, I can't do the 15% now, or I am doing the 15% and then my income drops, now I can't, that's just going to allow Parkinson's law to creep back into our life and start stealing wealth from us again. So even in tough times, Parkinson's law exists. So always put the 15% away. Even if you have to take some of it back out to pay some bills, always put it away. Don't let that habit die. That's such a vital thing for people to remember is the habit is more important than the account balance in this account structure. And so the next part that I want to go into is what we call the cash flow index. This is often a place where people can find the best use of their money through this system. So people will ask all the time, where should I invest my money? Now, if someone asks me that question, honestly, the first response needs to be they need to invest in themselves. They shouldn't necessarily have to ask me where they should be investing their money, right? If they're asking that question to someone, then you need to invest in your own education and gain some more knowledge and experience on that. But in the cash flow index, what we're going to do is just come up with the most efficient and effective way for us to analyze our debts or our loans. That way we can decide if the best use of our money might be putting it into our debt, putting it into ourselves, putting it into our practice. What are our opportunities? And a lot of times people don't realize that a great opportunity might be in their own debt structure. So the cash flow index is really just a focus on cash flow in the analyzation of a loan. This is how a bank looks at a loan. When banks look at loans, they don't really look at the interest rate, they look at the cash flow. So how much did we lend and how much money is coming in on a monthly basis? This is why they'll incentivize us to get 15-year mortgages instead of a 30-year mortgage with a lower interest rate. If they were truly in the interest rate business, then why would the banker be encouraging you to pay them less interest? They're in the cash flow business. So they're encouraging you to give them more cash flow on a monthly basis is what they're doing. Now, the formula for this is very simple, and I got to give a lot of credit to Dale Clark and Garrett for developing this. Dale will be on the webinar next week. But it's simple in that we just take the total amount you owe on a debt, any debt, whether it's a mortgage, student loan, car loan, credit card debt, any type of debt you have, take the total amount you owe and divide it by the minimum monthly payment. That will give you a score that we call the cash flow index score. And then just kind of like when you were in school, right? The higher the score, the better the debt, the better the cash flow of that debt is for you. The lower the score, the worse that cash flow of that debt or loan is for you. And the better it is for the bank. This also allows you to turn a debt into an interest rate and see what an effective rate of return would be if by investing in your debt. And so a simple way for you to do that is take a monthly payment. So let's just use a couple easy numbers. Let's say you got a $10,000 debt and your payment on that debt is $500 a month. So in order for you to calculate, if you did the cash flow index on that and you take the 10,000, you divide it by your 500, you're going to get a cash flow index score of 20. That's a pretty low score. So the reason that that score is so low and is such a bad one is if we turn that into an investment, if we say if you invest $10,000 into paying off that loan, your cash flow is going to increase by $500 a month because you don't have to send out the $500 check anymore. So what's the rate of return by investing in the debt? So you can take this $500 a month times 12 months, gives you $6,000. That's an annual return. Take that annual return of $6,000 and divide it by what you invested of $10,000, and it gives you a 60% effective rate of return. So you can actually calculate the effective rate of return on investing in any of your loans in this cash flow index model. That gives you the opportunity to say, well, I had the opportunity to add a new associate to my practice, or I had the opportunity to add a new nutrition line to my practice, or to bring in, some of my own equipment that I was having to send people out to other places to have certain treatments or certain things done. I'm going to be able to do that here locally now in my office. Well, if you look at that opportunity in your office, you can calculate your rate of return, expected rate of return. So the best use of your money may be investing in your own business. If you don't have that opportunity for you right there, then you can go through this cash flow index in your debt, and you can see where you can gain cash flow very quickly by investing in your debt. So once again, take the total amount you still owe on a debt, divide it by the minimum monthly required payment, gives you a cash flow index score. The lower the score, the worse the debt is for you. The higher the score, the better the debt is for you. So this is a tool you can use to gain cash flow very quickly. It's not uncommon for us to go through an analysis with clients and find $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, and kind of low-hanging cash flow, like low-hanging fruit in their cash flow. That extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month is the beginning of the build towards economic independence for them. It's the beginning of their freedom to gain that extra money in cash flow. And so the other thing that you can do to take this a step further is now kind of flip this model in reverse. So we're using it on the cash flow index initially just to analyze our debt and find out which debts are serving us from a cash flow perspective and which debts are not. We then can take it into our investments. So go through any investments that you have currently. It could be real estate investments. It could be qualified plans. It could be stock and bond investments. Whatever investments you have currently, do this exact same model, but just understand the scores are going to flip. So take how much you invested in any debt. So if it's real estate, only put down how much you actually put into it, not what the real estate's actually worth. Divide it by the monthly cash flow after all of your expenses. So whatever it actually produces net for you, how much you invested for whatever your net return is on a monthly basis. That'll give you an investment cash flow index. And now it's the opposite. The lower the score, the worse it is for you. The higher the score, the better it is. So kind of the opposite as it was on the cash flow index on our debts. So this is just a tool that you can use to analyze how efficient am I currently in my loans. Is there some low-hanging fruit where I can very quickly recapture cash flow that I can now use to build up my safety and liquidity faster, to get my opportunity fund expanded even more? When things get tough, we're going to be obligated to lower amounts if we're able to be more efficient, right? This also might show us areas where we could maybe look at some refinance moves where we can use our good relationships or good credit to gain some cash flow. Cash flow really will be key and vital to us throughout our entire business life. We're very, very good at focusing on cash flow in our business. We're not as good about focusing on cash flow in our personal finances. And so that's really what I want everyone to really focus on. Focus on your cash flow. Remember that any opportunity you have to increase cash flow is going to be much better than an opportunity to accumulate something. And then go and analyze your loans. Use this cash flow index. Analyze it, figure out exactly where you're at. Decide what's going to be the best use of your money. Will it be investing in a debt? Will it be stopping payments into a retirement account or some type of investment that isn't serving you? So if you get an investment account that has a terrible cash flow index on it, you may want to get out of that investment and redirect those funds to another place. This is a place for you to capture cash flow very quickly. Make sure you set up those accounts too. The reason that I taught the account structure first was I never want anybody to make a move in their cash flow index to increase their cash flow without that wealth capture account set up. The reason being is if you take a debt of $10,000 like we discussed before, you decide to pay off that debt. You pay it off, but you don't recapture the $500 a month and you just allow it to go into your normal expense accounts. Parkinson's law will steal that $500 a month. It's kind of a worthless move for you. So as you create any efficiency for yourselves within your debt structure or within your investment structure, I want you to then make sure that amount of money is redirected into that wealth capture account. Keep it away from Parkinson's law so that you can truly put it to good use. This wealth capture account isn't meant to be an account that you're not able to use. It's definitely meant to be an account for you to use. And Dale will talk about some ways to make that wealth capture account more efficient next week. Any questions so far on any of this? I feel like I've been talking pretty fast, but want to make sure people are.
Let's see. We have a question, but I don't know if you guys hear an echo. Okay. But it seems like you've covered it. It says, what's the best advice for someone about to graduate wanting to achieve high levels of success right away? But, I think what you said kind of speaks to that. It's something that you have to start doing today and continue to do. So, yeah.
The other thing for you to really focus on as you're starting, especially when you're right out of college, right? Look for ways to become as efficient as possible. So make sure you understand what opportunities and options are available for you in the repayment of student loans. It's pretty hard to get out of college these days, especially in chiropractic without some student loans. Make sure you understand what's available for you to get the lowest payments possible so that you can have as much cash flow. But understand that you also need to make sure that the interest, typically in a lot of these are going to be 6 different options for interest, income-based repayment, and 4 different options that are called asset-based repayment on those student loans. In those income-based repayment plans, you can oftentimes work out deals where you're paying less than what you need to pay just to meet the interest obligation. That can be great for you as you're starting a business and starting your practice. However, you need to make sure that you pick one of the plans that doesn't capitalize the interest that you're not paying. So if you're supposed to pay $6,000 a year in interest and you're only paying $2,000 a year, that $4,000 you want to make sure doesn't get added to the principal. That's called capitalization. If it capitalizes and is added to the principal, the next year your interest is going to be a higher number than it was the year before. So you'll have some opportunities. Make sure you understand those so you can really take control of your cash flow. The other thing is it's important for you to build the proper financial team as fast as you possibly can. In other words, you're going to find as you go out and you try and find the proper CPA, the proper accountant or attorney, the proper insurance professionals, the proper registered advisors, real estate advisors, anything that you're trying to build in your financial life, you'll find as you go out to start to build those, they're not going to always be on the same page. They're not going to always be in the same philosophical standpoint. So I remember, Garrett's been a great friend of mine. We went to high school together. And so I've known him since we were 15 years old, sorry. And he's been such a good student his entire life. He's paid whatever it takes to go out and get mentors. He's paid for courses. He's traveled all over the world, all over the United States to gain training and knowledge and education. And I remember him taking a trip back to New York when we were first starting to shadow a guy that was one of the biggest producers in the United States. And the first client that walked in was worth about $50 million or so. And when that client walked in, sitting at the table was the entire financial team. So it had the CPA, it had the attorneys, it had the registered advisors, it had the insurance professionals. Everyone was sitting there, and they had built a comprehensive financial plan for this client. And that just was really something that kind of blew our minds at the time that Garrett found this and discovered this. And these are called family offices. The problem with family offices is they don't talk to you unless you're worth $50 million or more. And so most of us don't have access to that level of talent or that level of help and assistance in our financial team. So we found, though, as we were going through and teaching our clients about what they should be doing, we might see something that would really help them if they did something a little bit different in their corporate structure, or if they set up a certain type of trust, or if they did something. And that client would then take it back to their attorney or back to their CPA. And rather than this being some kind of comprehensive, cohesive team that's working together, it became, I'm going to protect my kingdom. And so we found that we were fighting a lot with people's financial teams rather than having financial teams working together. And so in this, as I say, make sure you're building the proper team. You need to make sure that your team is on the same page. They're willing to communicate. They're operating from the same philosophical standpoint. They're doing all those things together so that you know they're working in your behalf and working together on your plan instead of fighting with each other. Garrett, early on as well, had a CPA and an attorney disagree on what kind of a corporation he should file as. So without talking to each other or without him, they just went ahead and each filed as a different corporation. So Garrett had two different corporations named the same thing that year. That obviously caused him quite a bit of trouble with the IRS and things and reporting, and how he had to say, no, this is not the one I'm using, and get one dissolved and get the other one going. So it just kind of, became a big problem to have a financial team that wasn't working together. Now that's something that Garrett has built here at the Wealth Factory. He's built what we call the Accredited Network. Accredited Network is a team of all those people. I call it basically a family office on retainer. And so if that's something you're looking for help in, that's something we can definitely help you with. As a matter of fact, what I'd like to offer tonight is what we call a cash recovery overview. Cash recovery overview is a call in which someone from the Wealth Factory, if you decide to take advantage of it, we'll offer this for free. You're going to call in. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to find out, based on your situation, if there's anything that we can very quickly help you with. So come with you. We're through three biggest problems and obstacles in your life right now. Have those prepared to ask them on the call. Come with the three biggest objectives you're trying to accomplish in your personal finances right now as well. And get on that cash recovery overview. That's something also, if you're interested in learning about the financial team that we have put together and how you could use and access that to the fullest in your life, you can definitely discuss that with them on the call. But having the proper financial team in place is just going to be vital for you as you're starting your career, to make sure you have the proper corporation set up right off the beginning. You understand tax strategies and what you should be doing from the very beginning. Sometimes we find a lot of tax savings for people, and they're really excited about that, and we can amend backwards for 3 years and get them a whole bunch of taxes. You know what, though? Sometimes we can't. And I always look at that as being good news, because usually if we find a whole bunch of tax savings for you over those 3 years, that means there's lots of water under the bridge we're never going to get back. That means years 4, 5, 6, 7 out that we can't amend back for, there were mistakes made that we can't recapture. So make sure as you're starting out, you understand proper, tax strategy and all these other things as you move forward. So if you decide you want to take advantage of that and have someone help you with your three biggest objectives and three biggest obstacles you're facing right now in your personal finance, click on the button and someone from Wealth Factory will definitely reach out to you, and you can set up that call so that you can take advantage of that free offer.
That was awesome. Anything else, Dave? That's good. Well, Tim, that was way more than expected, so I appreciate it. Now, so hopefully, again, if you guys are taking notes, definitely you should have a couple pages filled with that. Implement these things. And what I appreciate about Tim talking about was this is a habit. It's something that you just don't do it for a couple of days. It's a way of life. It becomes a lifestyle to have the life you want to have down the road. Totally take advantage of this. As he said again, if he was breaking up, it's free. So just Tabor, it's right below, right? The link.
Right. Yeah. It's a big red link below the video that says reserve your spot. Just click on that. If you're just listening or if you're watching a replay from YouTube, you can go to wealthfactory.com/schedule.
All right, great. Tim, thanks so much once again. And I'll probably see you, in a couple weeks when I'm out there.
No, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, again, thanks so much again. You guys, again, providing so much value. And when people ask, it's so tough to answer the question, well, what's working with Wealth Factory do? It's all of that. It's like the stuff you said. It's the things that you had no idea that was going on that you guys help us out with. And it is really great to have you and Brett Sellers and Dale. I just have I do have that family, what do you call it? The family
office.
That's exactly what it is. So when you're talking about it, I didn't know the history of it. Yeah, I have a family office, myself and everybody else who works with you guys. And it really is a godsend because you're all on the same page. And it really puts a lot of freedom in our life. Plus, you teach us at the same time. It's not like you just say, okay, let's handle it. Like you're teaching us along the same on the whole way, so we understand what's going on. And it's just been an amazing experience in the last 5 years we've been with you guys. So we just thank you so much for sharing with our thought leaders. All right, for everybody. So hopefully you got everything written down. Next week, Dale Clark will be here. So make sure you tell your friends and family and your patients. This is just not for chiropractors. Get everybody on there. And once again, thank you so much. Happy New Year. Let's have a good. We'll see you next year and finish strong. God bless, guys.
Yep. Thank you.